Hello everyone and welcome to round 5 of this year's Norway Chess, where all of the games that were played were incredibly interesting and a lot has happened in the world regarding the live ratings. We're gonna discuss that. I'm pretty sure you already know what I'm talking about, but let's first check out the game, as this is one of the games that's mostly responsible for the occurrence. So it's Hikaru Nakamura versus Aryan Tari. I think it was even Tari's birthday, so we had 2 birthdays this tournament, Gukash and Tari. So, you know, he not doing all that great in the tournament. He would very much enjoy at least some points against Hikaru. Okay, maybe not winning classical, but, getting it to Armageddon would be nice. So let's check out what happened here. Hikaru has the white pieces. This is classical, and he opens with pawn to e4. Pawn to e5, and Hikaru goes for bishop to c4. Sorry about that. The so-called bishop's opening. We have knight to f6 and now pawn to d3, sort of an some sort of a parallel universe London system setup. Bishop to c5 and now knight to c3. We have pawn to c6, preparing to strike in the center. Bishop to b3 and first pawn to d6. We have pawn to h3 and Aryan castles. And Hikaru now goes knight to f3. There is a game in the database from 2008. Alexander Morozevich played it against Vishwanathan Anand. He played queen to f3 and the game ended in a draw. But here knight to f3, and it is now already as of move 7 that we have a completely new game. Hikaru wants completely new territory as early on as possible. Everyone else is beating Tari, so Hikaru wants to beat him as well. And also that's one of the problems when you're not doing that great in a tournament. Maybe if you were doing great, people would be like, okay, you didn't take points away from others, we can have a draw. But if everyone else beats you and gets full 3 points, then everyone else will want to beat you as well. So that's why an offbeat approach by Hikaru, pawn to a5, and now castles. We have knight b to d7, pawn to a3, and now pawn to b5. Tari grabs more space on the queen side, bishop to a2, and now even knight to h4. Not knight to h5, a4 first, and now knight to h4. Going after this f5 square, Hikaru testing if Aryan will play g6, which will prevent knight f5, but also weaken the black king side. So he doesn't. He just goes back bishop to a7. Now comes queen to f3 and knight to c5, and Hikaru just goes for knight to f5, and it would be too dangerous to keep this knight on f5. You have to worry about too much. It just controls too many crucial squares here. Some checkmating threats might also be possible. So Aryan just trades it. Bishop captures on f5, queen captures on f5, and now rook to e8. Just nicely developing. You have to be a little bit worried about this light square bishop, but as long as the knight is on f6 and there's no way to dislodge it from there, should be perfectly fine. So bishop to d2 by Hikaru, knight to e6, and now knight to e2. We have pawn to d5, striking in the center, and e captures on d5. And now a very interesting moment in the game. Tari does not capture towards the center with c captures on d5, even though I have no idea why. It seems like a perfectly fine idea where you get all the central squares. And of course, this is never an option. Queen captures, pawn is never an option because knight goes back and you lose the knight on e2. So I have no idea why Tari did not capture c captures on d5. He played knight captures on d5. And okay, your position is okay, but you don't have the full center. So at least for my level of understanding chess, that's a bit weird. Rook a to e1, and now queen to d6. Developing the queen, connecting the rooks. We have queen to g4, now with some ideas of going after the black king, and rook a to d8. We have knight to g3, now the knight can come to f5 to h5 and put even more pressure on the black king. We have knight to d4, putting pressure on the c2 pawn, and here, well, you could kick it away with c3, then knight b3, and then, okay, the light square bishop will not be as powerful. You will have to give it up for this knight at some point. Hikaru first plays bishop to g5, and now Aryan moves the rook. The critical line here is pawn to f6, as it often is. I mean, yeah, it's either good or it's not. But the problem is it kind of opens up this diagonal. And here you might run into something like knight to e4, attacks the queen. And once the queen moves, because you really want to keep an eye on that f6 pawn, you will capture. F captures, bishop captures on f6, queen captures on g4, h captures, g captures, and now even knight captures on f6 because the knight cannot move. And after king f7, you will grab the rook here, captures, or rook captures, and okay, you will have two knights for the rook. It's a pretty it's definitely a trade-off. It's hard to say who would have the advantage here. Two knights, of course, are scary, but the black king is wide in the open. Once the position opens up, those two rooks will be incredibly powerful, especially complemented by the bishop on this long diagonal. So instead, rook to b8 by Tari, and now bishop back to e3 by Hikaru. Also, you need to counter this bishop. It's a magnificent piece. Queen to g6, offering a queen trade, and just pawn to c3, kicking away the knight. Knight captures on e3 first, f captures on e3, and now knight to b3. And now knight to e4. It's an excellent square for the knight. You can bring it to d6. You can bring it over to f5. Queen captures on g4. H captures on g4. And now you should play something like rook b to d8 and put pressure on the backwards d3 pawn. But Tari played pawn to c5, and this makes it very, very hard for him to play the game. What he did with the c5 move is that he basically locked his own dark square bishop out of the game. How are you getting this dark square bishop out of the game? You will have to play something like maybe here, here. But even if you get it to e7, the knight here just controlling all of these squares is gonna be a bad piece. So Hikaru fully takes advantage of this. He plays bishop captures on b3, a captures, and now c4, just keeping the pawn on c5. That's how he locks it in. Capturing does absolutely nothing. The bishop is still out of the game. So Tari instead goes rook to d8, goes after the rook e to d8, for those of you who are maybe just listening, not watching. Rook to d1, and now rook to d7, and now king to f2. Hikaru gets the king into the game, of course, ready to meet rook b to d8 with king to e2, guarding the d3 pawn. So h5, Tari wants to gain control over the f5 square, so if Hikaru captures, he can push f5, but Hikaru says that's perfectly fine. You just push that f5 pawn, because my knight is then coming to c3 and then to d5, and you know what this means, of course. F5, knight to c3. Now Hikaru's knight is coming to d5 or even to b5 if possible. But the thing is, both of those are light squares, and you have a dark square bishop, you have the two rooks, so either that knight is staying on that light square for the rest of the game, or you will at some point have to give up the exchange at the trade. So pawn to b4 attacks the knight, knight to b5 now, puts pressure on the bishop on a7, and now pawn to f4 by Tari. And this further advances Hikaru's advantage. Here you should probably play b captures on a3, and after knight captures, just keep the bishop safe and keep the position closed. But it's still very, very hard to play this. The knight will again be remaneuvered over to c3, then to d5, and it will just be a monster there. So instead, Tari played pawn to f4. Now Hikaru plays a captures on b4, bishop to b6, and now e captures on f4. We have c captures on b4, and now king to f3. We have e captures on f4, and now the only move in the position that gives white the advantage, pawn to d4, of course. The knight here guards the d4 pawn, also the rook here, and now you will just start advancing those pawns. Rook b to d8, Tari doubles up on the d file, but now not d5, the move you were expecting, because here you will never be able to push further, and also c5 will never be an option. So the idea will be to push c5, not d5, and Hikaru plays rook to d3. Just shows that this is never a threat, because if you capture, then Hikaru will just double up on the d file and you lose material here. And of course, if rook captures, then just knight wins material. So rook to c8, and it's Zugzwang. There's no move here that Tari can make. You can't really do any moves with the king. You can't do anything with the bishop. Once if the rook moves away from the d file, then you're just gonna capture the b3 pawn. So there's really nothing here. He tried rook to c8, kind of going after the c4 pawn, but Hikaru was waiting for just that. Rook to c1, and now rook to d5. If you now repeat rook c to d8, then c5 comes, and it's game over. Bishop to a7. Let's say c6 attacks the rook. Rook moves anywhere. C7 cuts off the rook from the defense of the bishop. Next move, you're gonna capture the bishop. So yeah, I mean, or the rook, or promote, or the rig. Depends on what black plays. But here, rook to d5 was played. This is a sort of a last resort move for Tari, saying that if you capture, I'm going to capture on c1. And even this is winning for Hikaru, but Hikaru doesn't play that. Hikaru plays pawn to c5, rook to g5 now, going after rook to g3 check. But now we've reached move 40, but Tari's position is completely lost. Feel free to pause the video and try to find the absolute best move for Hikaru while I give you a couple of seconds. I just realized my laundry basket was in the back when I checked the camera. So sorry about that. But you know what you're gonna do. You have to do your laundry. So yeah, if you were able to do it, congratulations on spotting this very nice idea. And for those of you who just want to enjoy the show, it is knight to d6. That's the good stuff. Just going after the rook, the bishop still hanging, and there's no good way to handle this. Even if you go for rook to g3 check, and let's say a king to e4, you could capture on d3. It's not a problem. King captures, you still have all the same problems, and there's no playing this. What are you going to play? Bishop to e7, then just knight captures on c8. If you don't, then you're going to lose the bishop, and you don't even care about rook captures on c1 because the pawn will promote. And it's sort of what happened in the game. After rook to g5, knight to d6, rook to c6 was played, saying, okay, maybe Hikaru doesn't see it, but he is the master of the puzzle rush. So of course he spots it in an instant, and he already saw it like 10 moves ago, so it's not a problem. C captures on b6 was played, and he was in this position on move 42 that Aryan Tari resigned the game, as there is nothing more to be done here. So beautifully done by Hikaru. Of course, if the rook is captured, just pawn to c7 promotes to a queen. There is no way of stopping this. There are no tricks here, like rook to g3 check, king to e4, rook to e1 check can be played, king to f5, king to d5, you don't really care. No more checks in the position. Next move you promote, and that's it. The knight covers d8, so e8, so that's out of the question. So yeah, here he resigned. Once again, congratulations if you were able to find this puzzle. And yeah, what does this mean for the tournament standings, for the live ratings? Let's check it out. So now Fabi is still in the lead, because we said in the previous round that he was so far ahead of everyone that even if he lost the next classical game and Hikaru won, he would still be leading the tournament. So even though Hikaru doing extremely well, if Fabiano continues playing well, it will be his tournament. Then we have Fabiano, Hikaru, Alireza, those are the top three. Then with 7 points, Shahriar Mamedov and Gukesh. With 6 points, Magnus Carlsen, Anish Giri and Wesley and Nodirbek Abdusattorov, and with 2 points in last place, Aryan Tari. These were the encounters. If you don't want me to spoil that, stop watching. So here they are. Nodirbek lost to Gukesh. Gukesh defeated him in Armageddon. Fabiano lost to Mamedov. Probably the next game I'm going to show in classical. Pretty tough loss for Fabiano. Alireza defeated Wesley So in Armageddon. Hikaru defeated Tari in this beautiful classical game that we've just seen. And Magnus was able to best Anish Giri also in Armageddon. And what does this mean for the live ratings? There we have it. Hikaru Nakamura is the new world number 2. He tops Ding, Fabi, and Alireza, and now is only bested by Magnus Carlsen. And look at the weird rating distribution now. Okay, Magnus Carlsen always ahead of everyone, by a lot, 2841. But now look at this. Hikaru 2783.5, Alireza 2783.2, Fabiano 2782.4, Ding 2780, 2779 for Nepo, and Danish 2772. So imagine if Magnus after this tournament says, all right, I'm done with chess, I'm just gonna officially retire, then he's no longer counted in the ratings, much like Kasparov. If Kasparov's rating was still counting, he would actually be world number 2. I don't know if you guys know that, because he just retired with a very, very high rating. But yeah, if Magnus just retired, then we would have a different world number 1, maybe even on a daily basis. So it would be complete chaos. We'll see what the future brings. It's always interesting in the chess world, so stay tuned for that. I would like to thank Michael Sakarias, David Gasparian, Brendan Fukuda, Niklas Wolf, and Andras Felnus for a contribution to my channel. Thank you a lot. I really appreciate it. As usual, you can check 2 of my previous videos here. Thank you all for watching, and I will see you soon, most likely with that Fabi Shah game, as it is, it is just a very nice game. So thank you all. I will see you soon, and have an excellent rest of your day.